Good morning, everyone. Worlds has actually been treating me pretty well in terms of Twitter and TikTok and YouTube, and I've got a bunch of new people following me that weren't before, so I figure now's a good time to open up to an AMA, because why not? I haven't done one of these in like a year. Before I get into that real quick, if you live anywhere near New York, or honestly, even on the East Coast, to my knowledge, we're the only one doing this on the East Coast, we are having a live watch party for finals of Worlds, November 18th, 3 a.m. at OSNYC. If you need more information, it's available on Twitter. You could either check myself or OSNYC, they'll have the details for you, but yeah, we are going to watch it live at the actual time of it going on. It's a blast, and I know a bunch of people are going to be coming, so feel free, if you're near New York City at all, come on in and watch. Starting off with an easy one, Nick asks, why do I hate reading patch notes? Okay, it's not that I hate reading patch notes, it's just that I don't ever think to do it. Things are changing with League of Legends constantly. There's a new patch, every 2 weeks, give or take, and items constantly change. It's a lot to keep up with in addition to doing content and everything else, and my content doesn't revolve around like knowing specific items, how they change, etc. So it's just a lot easier, quite frankly, to go into the game and just keep playing it. Now, I do notably play with Mobalytics, so I do at least have something that keeps me up to date on items. Like, I will be able to see the build pass of, like, oh, for example, Varus, is it a Rageblade Bork build right now, or is Stormrazor picking up, or is it lethality, AP? Like, I have some sort of metric to be able to help myself get through those. But I'm not just going in blind to building the same thing every single game. I do have some help, and if you don't have a third-party app, by all means, I would recommend them. They're really good in that regard. We'll get into the hard-hitting one early, I guess. Ross asked, do you think Riot has been coasting on League success and haven't innovated or improved the game enough to stay competitive with new games? I know there are quite a few people at Riot now that follow me, and they aren't the people, though. They're more on the esports side, so I don't think they'll take offense to me saying this, but yes, pretty bluntly put. Most notably in game, like this year, yeah, you've seen the revamp, because it feels like back in the 10-year anniversary when they announced Valorant and they announced the fighting game and all these other things to come, like most other esports orgs at the time, it just seemed like, okay, if we were doing our one thing that we were doing so good, we're going to expand into something else. We're going to try and diversify ourselves and make ourselves, more well-rounded and more whole across the board, which, to their credit, it was a success. They did that. They now have an incredible game with Valorant, with TFT, but it did come at the expense of like League becoming second fiddle to everything else, because it was solid and you had a solid player base that wasn't going away, so they didn't have to do much. Over the last 5 years, public sentiment has kind of dropped off, and the opinions of the game have slowly changed as time has gone on. The best example that I can give is that the premier experience of 5v5 multiplayer games like that is what Valorant has with Premier Mode, and you still have to go through third-party game or sources like the low-budget LCS to be able to do that in-game. Recreational, play at a League level is incredible and the best way to play League of Legends, and the fact that it's not in the game when we're coming up on 15 years is not good. Yeah, I do think they struck gold, and rather than continuing that and trying to constantly evolve it from the perspective of making sure that their foundation is good enough to build for decades upon decades, they didn't. And now we're seeing the repercussions of that as we have to reset that foundation to build upon as time goes on. Tread asks, what would an LCS including NA, Brazil, and LATAM look like to you? Where would it be located? Do you think 3-split system? Okay, so here's my thing. I don't mind the 3-split system if you're adopting a major style format similar to Call of Duty, where each individual split feels unique, it doesn't get repetitive, there's always something, and you are notably playing in front of fans. My only thing that I just want to make sure that if we are swapping to 3 splits, is that we are not giving up the amount of time that we spend in front of fans that's not in Los Angeles. And hopefully with the broadcast center that is now in Seattle in North America, Riot can produce their broadcast from anywhere. So hopefully that encourages us to hit the road more and get out of LA, especially with Valorant having the arena during weekends. Will that happen? I don't know. As for what would it look like with NA, Brazil, and LATAM altogether, it wouldn't lead to us having better international results. If anything, the only thing it would do is it would help increase the level of players from the CBLoL and from the LLA and get them to be a little bit more competitive with us, which might drag our top end down to a certain extent, but then eventually more competition is always better. If I had my choice, I'd say we do 1 split on the West Coast, 1 split in Brazil, and 1 split on the East Coast, and have a location you could do there, with like a finals in each location being different. But like it's all about getting the product directly in the hands of more fans. If you're going to include Brazil, you have to go down to Brazil and still cultivate that fan experience down there. Or if, like, I think it was Raul from the LCS like staff said that they do like watch parties in Sao Paulo and like other areas where they have like a traveling fan fest that gets in front of people. Like, that's great, but we also need that in North America. And if that culture can come up here as we blend them, then great. But yeah, like international results, it doesn't make a difference whatsoever. The final question from Twitter comes from Noir. It says, what can Riot do to change the narrative around the LCS? Fanbase really needs to get energized, and where does that come from? That comes from getting players in front of people. The players do not do a good enough job of building their own brands online. In a world where Call of Duty pros are better at it, in a world where Valorant pros are more vocal on Twitter, League players just tend to be kind of socially more outcasted to a certain extent, like less willing to go and shit talk on social media. So the only way to counteract that is to get in front of people more often, which means touring and going around outside of LA more than just twice a year. You gotta let the people determine the narrative. I think content creators as of the last year are doing a much better job of pushing their own story points that the broadcast can then reiterate. You have a better pulse on the community. The other thing I think Riot could do, and this is broader, not just LCS, but I think it would have a tangible impact, is you really need to update the League Partner Program. You need to have a constant cycle of new talent coming into the LPP, and applications haven't been open for like 3 years now. So you have the same content creators from pre-COVID that you have now. And that's not the same people that are playing the game. Times change, and so do the people playing the game. And I think if you can constantly refresh the LPP, which would also then refresh the opportunities for people to co-stream the game, and yes, I'm partially saying this from a selfish point of view, if games were on weekends and I had LPP to be able to do that, would I co-stream them? Absolutely, and I would hope that I could become a home for 100 Thieves fans to react to these games. But I think you need to constantly be evolving the people that you have with the game beyond just the players, because the personalities are arguably even more important than the players sometimes, especially in a world where we're not winning and entertainment is the main product. So you need people that are entertaining both on stage and off. Hopping over to TikTok, I got one final question on the LCS before we swap over to Worlds. User 925, I'm not kidding, it's literally a strand of numbers. He says, what do you think will be the death of League of Legends / LCS, and how far out do you think that is? The problem is that kids aren't playing the game, and that worries me. You don't have League in high schools, and kids are playing Fortnite and Roblox and everything else that it's like, I don't know how you counteract that. And unless you can find a solution for that, we're on a ticking time bomb. I don't think League of Legends or LoL esports will ever go away, because in Europe, in Korea, and in China, the youth culture around the game is incredibly strong, and it will always be there. So like, in terms of like my confidence as a content creator to be in the LoL esports space, I'm very confident, because I think there will always be League of Legends esports unless there's like a direct competitor that fills that void, because there's no better competitive game out there in the world. But for North America, we do have a really big risk over the next 5 to 6 years of just our young player base dropping off, people coming up not being as good, our performance faltering. Even if we do hit the road and we get in front of more people, if kids aren't inspired to go home and play the game and try to be that person that they see on stage, then you have very significant risk. And I think we'll know within the next 5 to 6 years, being honest. To be clear, that doesn't mean the LCS is going to die and go away. I don't believe that will ever happen. But death can also mean you're relegated to having 40 to 50,000 viewers, and that's it. And people that have to work jobs and also do this, and it slowly dies out over the course of like 20 to 30 years. That's also a death even well before it's actually, cut off and done. And we are at risk of that. There's no denying that, and saying anything otherwise would be just oblivious. But if there's one thing that brings me comfort, it's that if anything were to ever happen to the LCS, as much as it would pain me, I would pick a team over in Europe and follow the LEC almost religiously, because I can still follow them or their games on weekends and also during times that actually fit decently well for the East Coast. It's only one Friday during work and that's it, but then Saturday, Sunday is perfectly fine. So yeah, I'm not worried about League of Legends long term. The game itself is going to be fine, especially with Arcane and all the other things that they have going on. The series and universe of League of Legends will live on, at least in my opinion, forever. I think there's actually a chance of Riot going at Disney in terms of the amount of IP that they have available to really get creative with. Will it get there? Who knows? Final question of the video from J Chugs. What is my favorite storyline of the teams remaining in the tournament? It is by far and away T1. I called last year after they lost Worlds that I think that they would rebound and win this year. And when Faker got injured, there was this sense of like, oh my god, like this might be it. They might be done. And I still think there is worry with Faker and his injury of long-term repercussions. And I think if they win Worlds this year, there's a chance that he does retire. They're a completely different team with him. And the fact that they destroyed LNG and now get their shot at revenge on JDG, who beat them in an incredible 5-game series at MSI, when the meta is starting to swing back towards T1's favor. It's incredible to watch. It's dramatic. Like, if I could stay up next Saturday to watch it, I would, but I can't. But I just think everything surrounding T1 right now, and the most popular player, and the most popular org, and what is going to be the most watched Worlds match of all time. The only one that might top it is maybe if like Weibo makes finals against T1 and that goes to 5 games, like maybe that can top it. But other than that, I think this is going to be just an incredible series. So yeah, that's it for this AMA. Thank you to everybody that submitted questions. If you don't follow me on any social media platform besides YouTube, be sure to drop a follow. But otherwise, even if you're here and you're not subscribed, be sure to subscribe down below. Thank you so much for taking the time, and I'll catch you later. Adios.